Hey guys, hope everyone is doing amazing tonight and the gods have been smiling on you. Uh, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. This is awesome. So, yeah, I wanted to kind of go over again a little bit of what I did in the video this morning. So, I'm going to try and go into a little bit of that. So, first off, I want to thank everyone for being here. Van City Prepper, T Hand 141, Little Homestead by the Beach, Patrick, Lewis, Remy, Bella Love. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Really appreciate it. So, yeah, you know, I kept seeing a lot of YouTube videos lately about people bugging out and how to prepare and what to pack in your bags and what to get ready for. And to me, it was like I kind of ditched my bug out bag. I want to say like when I moved here, basically. So I still have my kind of go bag or get home bag, which usually goes with me in the truck. And I've got my truck filled with supplies as well. And that is basically to get me home from work if there's an event that happens, um, or we're away somewhere visiting people or traveling around or even at the grocery store or something like that. And there's a flood or flash flood or who knows what. Telephone pole drops and power goes out. So the truck is prepared. I usually have a bag for that to get home. But to leave the house or leave the homestead to run off into the bush somewhere to get away from something, no, I do not have a bag for that. And I probably won't anymore. City Girl, thanks for joining us. Blind Guy, his wife, their life, thanks for joining us. Glad you guys could make it. So, to me, I've kind of gone through so many different scenarios in my head, as well as looked at different scenarios that are happening around the world, different situations I've been in as well, where there's been like a train derailment or tornado, ice storms, that sort of thing. And there's very few scenarios that I've found where you're going to rush out of the house with a bag on your back and run off into the woods to hope to survive in the woods. Now, that's not to say it won't happen for someone who lives in the city or a subdivision or something like that, where, you might face some sort of thing. But in that kind of scenario, what we tend to talk about or what we tend to visualize is basically collapse of society. We talk about like zombies or roving bands of bad guys that are going to do us harm and that sort of thing. Where throughout history, and even in countries where, say, Venezuela, Lebanon, where the countries have gone bankrupt and people are, trying to get by, those situations haven't really occurred. In those countries, people have almost gone reverted back a bit. So they've gone to trading stuff, they've gone to, uh, you know, doing other jobs like giving basic haircuts and that sort of thing. So when we think of something where we have to bug out into the bush and run away from everything we've created, again, there's so many situations that have to happen and so many bad things that have to happen that I don't think it's actually going to happen. Hey, thanks everyone else for just coming in as well. CR, Creative Redundancy, Paul Andre, Cat Mac. Who else did I see come in here? Dave Knight, thanks for joining us. So, we talk about stuff like, say we have to bug out due to a wildfire. Okay. Usually, most people get enough warning that a wildfire is coming. In that situation, you're not really bugging out. You're collecting some stuff, and that kind of goes along with, a bug out bag, is that if you're in a situation where there might be a wildfire, tsunami, hurricanes, that kind of stuff, where you do have to leave your house because of a situation, I wouldn't suggest having a bug out bag where it's a fishing line, fishing hooks, a saw, and that sort of stuff. What I'd suggest you pack is your passport, the deed to your house, your insurance policies, your licenses, social insurance numbers, the kind of stuff where if something happens to your house, you need to be able to contact the people who are going to help fix it for you. So, and again, in those situations, you're still getting some time to pack up the goods you need to pack up and leave. It's not going to be something just happened, you got to go now. There's a few cases like that: flash floods, train derailments, um, civil unrest, but even some of that stuff you can see coming, like the civil unrest. So you need to be prepared for that sort of thing. But again, bugging out into the wilderness to survive in the woods, in most cases, is not feasible. So for us up here, and I want to say for a lot of people in Ontario, Quebec, out east, there is just so much snow in the winter that you're kind of limited to the actual time you can bug out. So if something happens in winter, you're going to start running into problems. And in that kind of case, I'm just, you know, if you again, I can carry enough equipment to go off right now and live in that kind of conditions with the snow, the cold weather, enough food without being able to hunt, set up some sort of camp. I need my backpack and a big toboggan loaded up with stuff, which I'm not going to get far with. So, what are your guys' thoughts on that? I'd love to, see what you guys are thinking, see what you're prepping for. Like, don't get me wrong, a good go bag to get home, a bag maybe filled with copies of insurance, driver's license, your house deed, all of that kind of stuff, important stuff, family photos, anything that, you know, if you knew your house was going to burn down, what do you need to pack up because you want to keep and protect and save for your next house? Um, yeah, CR, the earthquakes is something you wouldn't see coming. Again, in that situation, I don't think most people are going to be bugging out, like heading off into the bush to kind of survive. In this situation, I think a lot of people, because it just happened, you didn't see it coming, you're almost going to be like a refugee. So you need to be prepared for that kind of thing to be able to move. And again, you might have to go to the next town or the next city, get a hotel room, find someone to stay with, that sort of thing. Again, I don't think the whole premise of bugging out into the bush and, moving around and finding a secure location is what you're going to do in the case of an earthquake. You're going to get together with other people and try and rebuild, hopefully. Yeah, and that's just it. Is to me, the whole premise of bugging out is survival. You're in a situation where you need to survive. And again, I've seen very few situations where that's going to happen, where roving groups of zombies or bad guys are terrorizing a country or the city or something like that that hasn't been dealt with in another way. I think sort of towards Mexico, where you can use the example of the cartels and avocado farmers, where the cartels were trying to take over the avocado farms. So the farmers got together and basically built their own towns around their farms and hired their own protection and protected themselves from the cartel. So again, it's I think in these situations, you want to get together with your neighbors. You want to create a community where you can all help each other and, rely on each other's skill sets, each other's work, each other's ability to do things. Yeah, wildfires are a concern for us here too. The great thing with us here, though, is we're very close to where the big water bombers are stationed. So hopefully they wouldn't take too long to get here, and hopefully they'd be able to save our house before it went up. But in the meantime, we're actually taking steps to deal with that. So we're we've been working on cutting paths through the forest. We want to make them wide enough that hopefully the fire doesn't jump. We want to put in a couple ponds. We want to put in basically, cow pastures, some more of those as well. Something to be able to create fire breaks so it doesn't reach the house. We also want to green up all around the house too to try and keep it as green as possible and as wet as possible, kind of thing. No, not really. And that's the thing is that, if we bugged out and just left, we'd be losing everything we've worked for forever. So that's why we are kind of prepared to stay in place and keep preparing to try and make everything as safe as possible for any emergency situations, any natural disasters we might encounter. For example, the wildfires. For us, some of the other stuff, that people talk about, like civil unrest and that sort of stuff, we're already out in the country. So no one's going to riot in our driveway, that sort of thing. Whereas, even cities we've seen down in the States who had to have bad riots and um, in the Middle East where they had the uprisings, the Arab Spring. Again, people still stayed put. There wasn't huge mass evacuations and that kind of thing. So I think again, in my mind, my opinion, there's very few circumstances where you're going to be taken off on foot somewhere. I'll try and catch up on the chat here, and um, that's just it. A lot of people have other situations where even leaving could be an issue itself. Yeah, and if you're going to stay in the city, what you want to do is be able to get together with friends and neighbors and be able to help each other out. We take, for example, Lebanon and Venezuela, where there's still people jam packed in the cities. And again, they trade, barter, um, do haircuts in the street and different stuff like that. So it's, something that people still do. There hasn't been a situation yet that have forced them out of the city. I think I'm behind. I want to say hello to everyone else who's been coming in. Uh, Belly Acres, Prepper Chicken Texas, Scott Rambling with the Brooms, Harvey Black, Sherry Leach, hopefully Honey Badger's Homestead. Hopefully I didn't miss any. Redbird. Again, hopefully I didn't miss anyone, but if I did, I'm sorry. Just gonna try and back up here. Oh wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Was it forest fire, flood, tornado? What was the situation? Yeah, I saw a couple videos on that. That's crazy. And that's just it. I think so many of us will do a lot better staying in place, getting to know your neighbors, uh, and if they're all in the same mindset, creating some sort of security plan, helping each other grow food, raising animals together, working together to create your own community in your either subdivision or on your street or in your apartment building or that sort of stuff. Like, I mean, take for example an apartment building, get to know your neighbors, and then one neighbor grows some tomatoes on their balcony, another one grow rosemary on their balcony, another one grow rose basil on their balcony, and start trading between each other. Yeah, exactly. Take a look back at your area. I mean, there's so many places where there's like, you know floodplains, if you have tornadoes, that kind of thing. Again, with a tornado, though, even bugging in, if you're safe, is a lot better option than sometimes running. If you have a storm shelter or if you have a secure basement or something like that. Yeah, the one thing I'm trying to say though, in with the photos and that kind of stuff, is there's I in my opinion, there's very few scenarios. Um, Take for instance a fire or a flood or a tornado or that kind of thing, where say you bug out or leave your house, usually you're going to come back to it. So taking stuff that might be important to you, in my mind, is a little bit better option than taking fishing line and fishing hooks and that kind of stuff. Um, a mirror sort of thing. So, if you're bugging out with one of those reflective mirrors to signal airplanes, is it really going to be useful if you're bugging out to get away from Mad Max, zombies, that kind of thing? Maybe to alert other people or something. But in most cases, again, I think most of us would be bugging out or leaving quickly and going to either a hotel or a friend's place or somewhere else. So taking items we want to save to be able to bring back or start a new house is kind of the way that I would pack now. But again, it's different for everybody. It's one of those things again, um, trying to catch up on the chat here, guys, but it's one of those things again that you really need to know your situation, your circumstance. I mean, if you're beside a railroad track that carries chemicals all the time, or if you're by a river that floods, or if you're by the coast where you have to deal with hurricanes or tsunamis or that kind of stuff, yes, then your situation will definitely be different than mine. Yeah, exactly. That's just it. It's when you have to leave, going off into the woods isn't always that option. It could be a friend's or hotel. And again, it depends on the situation. So yeah, yeah, we were joking about that earlier is saddling up the cows and just riding the cows out. Oh, definitely. That's one of the things too is like, you know, if you have copies of their birth certificates, recent photos of them, that sort of thing. So, you know, say one of these disasters happens, everyone in your area leaves at once, and you have to go into, say, a government facility or a stadium or first aid or Red Cross or something like that, and you get separated in a crowd, then it's good to have some sort of, you know, here's what they look like. This is a picture of them. Um, here's their birth date. Here's it. It helps quite a bit. Yeah, I think many of us have done that. Ah, house fires are the worst because, again, you've got no warning and it will take everything with it that's there. I'm very sorry to hear that. That's brutal. Oh, there's definitely different levels of prep. I think the more we can do ourselves and the more we can do for ourselves is better, as well as for each other and that kind of thing. The the more I have here available to me to deal with all these different natural disasters or circumstances that might take place, or inflation, government bankruptcy, country bankruptcy that Lebanon and Venezuela saw, um, dealing with other stuff, is just the more we buy insurance for houses, we buy insurance for cars, for life. I think being able to prep and have food on hand, have backup power supplies is just an extra level of insurance where we don't have to go to another company later to help us out after the situation. We might be able to get through the situation so we don't have to rely on a company to reimburse us for what's happened, sort of thing. Oh, definitely. It's one of those things that you know, we all need. I think everyone should prepare. Everyone should have extra supplies on hand, be prepared for all these natural disasters, um, regular disasters. I've even talked about like snowstorms, ice storms, transport trucks going into power lines, and you've lost power for a few days. That kind of thing, where it's. I think there's situations where people have come home and there's been a plane crash in their house. What are the chances of that happening? But it does happen. So the I wouldn't say you can prepare for that, but the more you're prepared and have backup redundancies of important documents, of say cash on hand or that sort of thing, where if suddenly your house is gone, then you're able to move on that much easier. Yeah, exactly. Especially right now with food prices jumping so much, is if you have extra food on hand, it's kind of a buffer for the price increases later on as well. Yeah, I and it's not that way to be scary. I think it's that way to be able to be more calm, you know? There's the more prepared you are, the more I think at ease you are as well. Um, the more you learn about different ways of doing stuff, old methods of doing stuff, or ways that people did stuff in the olden days. I think it's one of those that the more we know, the better off we are in different situations. Yeah, and that's a great idea. Like if you have stuff stored somewhere else off site, uh, if you have copies, paper copies, USB copies, laminated copies, it's all good that, and again, it's not that fear factor. It's just in case this happens, you're ready and you're prepared. Yeah. Uh, Not only if you lose your job or you get sick, but what if someone else gets sick? What if a family member dies and you have to travel a distance to look after them? Do you have the available vacation time from work to be able to do that? Or do you have to take an unpaid leave of absence to go deal with their possessions, the sale of the house, the funeral arrangements, that sort of stuff? It if you don't have that time available and you have to take an unpaid leave, how are you prepared to do that? Do you have some extra money set aside? Do you have some extra food to get you through that time where you might not afford to go to the grocery store? Yeah. Yeah, I hear you on that. Myself, I'd be scared going into some of the shelters and that sort of stuff. I'd rather actually camp out in the bush in a situation where we'd have to leave. In my mind, I'd be open to driving hours further just to get a nice hotel or something like that. But again, you know, the situation can happen where you might be stuck there, or depending on the weather, who knows? But the more you prepared you are for that, much better off you are. So if you're prepared for the big flash, then you're okay. You're good to go. Take care. Have a great night, eh? Thanks for joining us. Exactly. It's insurance you don't have to wait on the phone to get. You don't have to fight for. You don't have to prove you have it. Prepping is insurance where it's you. It's not another company that is going to fight you for it. Yeah, very true. It's all dependent on their person, the location, what everyone's got going on. Um, and then you said it as well too. If your house burns down and takes your truck, well, then you're going to be walking or grabbing another car or hitching a ride with somebody. Yeah. Every time you go into the grocery store, grab something a little extra if you have money. I mean, even if you're on a small budget, if you can afford one extra can of beans or one extra can of soup or something like that, and you try to do that all the time. I know for a lot of people, even doing that is hard nowadays. I remember my grandmother who was on a very small budget with the apartment and everything she had, even trying to get an extra can of soup or something like that in her groceries was hard for her. It was crazy. Yep. Yeah. Bank boxes are good, like the security deposit boxes and that. Um, I'd have another backup as well, just because in my mind, say it is a situation where something happens, the bank might be closed as well. So you might not be able to get into the bank to get into that security box. Yep. Hey, and welcome as well. But that's kind of how when I grew up as well, it was I dealt with a train derailment in a city close to me where 2 kilometers around that they had to be evacuated immediately. But again, it wasn't a bug out scenario where they had to run off into the bush. It was, you know, go to a neighbor's or go to a hotel or, you know, go wait out at Tim Hortons or something until we get this assessed and cleaned up and see if it's actually dangerous. The tornado was another, and ice storm was another. Hey, Nate, take care. Thanks for joining us again. Yeah, and that's just it. It's the more you can prepare your house, your property, uh, prepare with your neighbors as well, develop a community, create a situation and an area where you don't really have to leave unless it's something, like a wildfire or a flood or something that has forced you to leave. Yeah. So, what I'd suggest in kind of that situation is again, get to know your neighbors. Um, Make sure they know your circumstance. Make sure you have friends that know your circumstance as well. So that if you do have to leave, they're in a situation where they know to come pick you up or know to come grab you or that sort of thing. Again, that's I think the how the community is such an important part of our lives as well. Um, yeah, exactly. If I mean, that's the other thing is if you can store stuff at relatives too. Um, if you have extra documents at your kid's place or your parents' place or an aunt and uncle's place or something like that. So you have backups in different places. That's awesome. Um, it just makes it that much easier because, again, a cache doesn't have to be something out in the woods with stones piled on top where you have your GPS and you're going to go find it. It can be, and that's great. It just, you know, you I'd like everyone to think of different possibilities as well, where, you know, you're going out, you're leaving because of a fire or you're leaving because of a flood. Say you're and then you go have to go to a relatives and they might have the documents there that you need to get your place looked after. Oh, we only got 2 of these hats made. Actually, this is the only one like it with the multicam. Bridget got one that's all black. So, I don't know if we'll actually do more hats or not. However, yep, there's the Redbubble shop that has some logoed stuff. So you can get Thorhaven hoodies and other hoodies and t-shirts. And I think they actually might do hats too. But yeah, this one here is a one-off. Yeah, and I recommend everyone get a wood stove. Like we were talking earlier in another stream, and you know, there's also the option of if your house is without power in a subdivision or something and you don't have heating, you can leave. If you can't leave, then there's the option of heating your garage with something, or you know, basically just sleeping in your garage if you've heated it. All the walls are insulated except the garage door. So it'll be a lot easier just to heat the garage and stay in that than, trying to keep the entire house warm. You'll have problems maybe with like pipes bursting if it gets too cold and that kind of stuff. But if you have a wood stove inside the house or fireplace inside the house, oh, that makes such a huge difference for situations with power outages. There you go. That's a good idea. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And keep your vehicles packed with equipment you might need. Even keep extra documents, copies of documents in the vehicle as well. You can never have too many copies, I don't think, anyway, of stuff. So yeah, definitely keep your vehicle always stocked. Always kill. I bleh. I always keep it filled up with gas as well. If I'm driving by a gas station and I've been driving for a while, I always top it up, just so I'm always got a full tank of gas in any situation. Big Bear Prepper, hello. Thanks for joining us. That's just it. The If you get an ice storm in winter, there's sometimes you're not going anywhere, and it might have been the same one that was here in Quebec, and it hit Maine and parts of the northern U.S. as well, where the power was out for 3-4 weeks, something like that. In some spots, it was crazy. So, you if you don't have a fireplace in that situation, um, you're going to be hard pressed to heat the house, I think. Yeah, yeah. It's at most houses temperatures will drop fast. It's not funny. Yeah, 98 was the ice storm. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, we have friends we talked to that experienced that ice storm. Animals that had died during that. People pipes freezing and that kind of stuff. Because you know, for me, you always kind of think of your own situation. So we think of our house, and it's like you put yourself in their shoes, like, how did your pipes freeze? And it's like, oh yeah, your pipes don't go through the basement and stay inside. Sometimes they go outside and all that because stuff isn't actually supposed to freeze down there. So sometimes that's pretty crazy. Yeah. So some of the other things that I was thinking about too, and looking at is, people in the city, if they're bugging out in, the kind of sense where we're all like, crap has hit the fan, we're going to make a run for it, grab our bags. I was looking at different stuff, and, the majority of people in Canada live in cities. So Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, Vancouver. So I looked at Toronto and I kind of pulled up where my brother lives. And I'm like, okay, so if he had to bug out, like grab stuff and just go, it will take him 5 hours to get to somewhere where he has kind of, I want to say, cover, like forested habitat or golf course where it continues into forest or ravines or that kind of thing. So again, it kind of goes back to, it would take him 1.5 hours on bicycle to get to that location. And then again, on bike, he might not be able to continue on a bike. But again, in that situation, we're kind of talking about, you know, end of the world scenarios where stuff's gone so bad. There's roving gangs, there might be zombies, they might, you know, it's that Mad Max scenario. So again, he'd have 5 hours to try and get out of the city, which is crazy if you're walking, I think. Yeah, that's awesome. What I'd like to do is actually, we've got 3 wood stoves in the house. I wanna switch one for, like, a wood burning oven cook stove. So if something goes bad, we can actually use that wood stove to actually cook and bake and do all our meals on, and then move the other one out into the greenhouse or the garage or something like that. But I'd also like to get propane tank and maybe set up the kitchen stove on propane or natural gas or something, except we'd have to get a line for the natural gas. So if we set it up on propane, then we have a few different options for heating as well. So I could use that propane for the barbecue or the kitchen stove. And then we've got the wood, and then we've got the electric. So kind of building again redundant systems. Yeah, and that's just it, is like, if your plan is to kind of bug out from an apartment or the city or the subdivision or something like that on foot, make sure you grab that bag, make sure you carry that bag a lot, and actually, you know, maybe even do a scenario where you have to walk to where somewhere where you think you're safe from public view or something like that. Cardiovascular exercise where you're going to be going for a while with that pack, with that weight, you're used to it. Make sure you have boots or shoes or clothing that is not going to cause blisters or start scratching or rubbing, that kind of thing. I know the marathon runners have to like Vaseline their body because of, too much rubbing. So there's like all these situations that, you don't really think about until you're in them or someone that's done it. Have a good night. Take care, eh? Nice. That's an awesome setup. Yeah, that's just it, is even a basic wood stove you can cook on. I've done scrambled eggs and bacon and beans and all that, no problem, on just a regular wood stove. You can bake on it. It takes a while, but you can. But having an actual wood cook stove would make all the difference. Uh, yeah, my thought is like if I could hook up the kitchen stove and the barbecue to a propane, like a big propane tank, that would make me happy. It would be easier than running to out to the gas station or out to the, you know, the store all the time to get the propane tank filled up for the barbecue. I could just, have a truck come in, fill up a tank, and I'd be good for a couple months of barbecuing and cooking. Yeah, exactly. Uh, if you have stuff like that, like I go through my truck almost every couple weeks, and just pull stuff apart, move it around, make sure everything still works, like the lighters still work, make sure um, the water bags haven't broken, the emergency water supply, make sure the food in the foil hasn't opened up, make sure I know how to use it, make sure everything still works, make sure the my sparker on my camp stove still fires up. If you haven't used it, haven't tested it often, how do you know it still works? Hey, welcome. Glad you could join us. That's good to know. Yeah, I've been wanting a cook stove for a while. It's one of those things that's still in my back of my mind that we want to get, and I definitely want to go new though because I want the instruction manual. I've used some other cook stove and people's hunting cabins and that sort of thing where you don't have the instruction book, and some of them are very complicated. So trying to get it figured out so that everything works properly, the smoke's going out the right way, you're heating up the right section of it. Um, you've got like one of those warmers up on top, and there's so many levers and gadgets and all that. I want to make sure I have the instruction manual. Yeah, and it's good to do too, because like, when we used to do rock marches in the military, what you'll find too is like sometimes you're not prepared for the amount of wear and tear just on your shoulders, uh, also on the middle lower back too. It'll rub a lot. So depending on the pack you have, you want to make sure you wear it quite a bit and make sure it's not going to rub you in the wrong spots, or make sure you have some sort of protection from that rubbing as well. Oh, really? Okay. Oh, that's brutal then. You know, I'd rather have the big tank, but just because I don't like going out all the time to get that filled. But yeah, so do you guys have any other thoughts, questions, that sort of thing? I think I covered everything I want to cover. Let's see. Yeah, I did. Hey, Mark, welcome. Glad you could join us. Like this, one of our wood stuff for cook stuff. Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's my plan as well. I'm not sure whether the wood stove would go out to the greenhouse or the garage. Both could use it. Yeah, my parents got that done is but I think they did the natural gas. I can't remember. But they did something so they hooked up their barbecue to it so they don't have to keep going out and getting tanks. They just, you know, it's on so the barbecue's always good to go. Yeah, soap is always a good thing. Some sort of way to clean. Uh, I was watching I forget what it was called, but it was like, they're living as people would, I think it was like 50, 60, 70 years ago, sort of thing. And so they were doing washing of clothes and not using regular soap and water like you would nowadays, but they used whiskey, alcohol, um, butter, and milk to get stains out. So basically, they soaked, depending on the type of stain, they soaked it in those items and then basically boiled the clothes for, I think it was like a day or something crazy like that. So there are other ways to get clean and do stuff, but having soap or some sort of cleaning agent is always good, not only for clothes but cuts and medical reasons, and just keep yourself healthy, washing your body and that kind of thing. That's well, it's kind of funny and stuff. It's kind of that situation too, is like depending on what goes bad, you know, a nuclear fallout or Mad Max scenario, do you really want to deal with that? It's hard to say until you're in that situation, I guess. Yeah, and depending on the time of year and the situation that's happening and what's going on, again, like I was trying to prove in the video this morning, is like if I want to bug out into the bush, I don't have a pack big enough to carry everything I want. It would have to be on toboggan, that sort of thing. Also, the packs, well, most of the packs I have are kind of military in nature, so they're not meant for, you know, hiking kind of thing. They're meant for carrying gear. So I do have one that's a lighter pack, which has the adjustable straps, has the air padding, that kind of stuff, which is a much nicer kind of bug out style pack. So again, it's what works for everybody in your own circumstance. And definitely try it out. Like if you just got one, if you packed it up, try it out. Take it for a hike, take it for a walk to the next town if you can, or something like that. Like walk to the next subdivision or through a national park or provincial park, or, you know, go through the woods, that sort of thing. Like make sure you use it and get used to it. Oh, those are great though. Those strollers with the big wheels, those are awesome. The ones meant for jogging. Those are really neat. You can throw a pack on there and have that carry your pack instead of you carrying your pack. Yeah, I think for most of us in our situations where we are, um, you know, bugging in is the preferred ideal situation. If you're in a city or an apartment or a small subdivision, then, you know, there there's could be things to make you bug out. Um, But again, I don't think anything's going to be as dramatic as throwing your pack on and going living in the wilderness. But again, I could be wrong. I've been wrong lots. So, Mulberry Branch, Ashley, how's it going? Glad you could join us. Yeah. And again, make sure your family has a plan, make sure your neighbors have plans. Um, get to know them. I think a lot of people nowadays don't even know their neighbors. You live in a subdivision, and how many times do you have dinner with your neighbor or talk to your neighbor or have a beer with your neighbor, discuss situations, just see what they're thinking. You want to make sure that when push comes to shove, that you can go to the right neighbor or rely on the right neighbor, or kind of their thought process of what they're thinking as well in that situation. Yes, we're planning lots of stuff this year. We are expanding our garden. We'll probably double the size of both gardens, our raised bed as well as our regular bed. And we're going to also try and slim down, narrow what we are growing. So last year I kind of got carried away with doing a bunch of stuff that I've never done before, just to, have fun, to see if I can do it. Um, it was also for the Shed Wars too that I thought some of the stuff would be cool. But what I want to do, like we grew fennel last year. It's still in the freezer. We haven't used it yet. So instead of wasting garden space for that kind of stuff, we are going to grow more carrots, more onions, more potatoes, more of the stuff that we actually use every day rather than fennel. Oh, the multi-fuel stoves are nice. They're great. You know, run whatever you want on them. Yes. So many places now, even Canada, ticks are a big thing to deal with. I saw the one thing that's what is it, tickless? So it's like one of those like ultrasonic repellents. So you're not having to throw chemicals on you, that sort of thing. It's basically ultrasonic. So technically, I guess only the ticks can hear it. But from what I've heard, there's good reviews on them and they work pretty good. Yeah. And that's just it. If you're bugging out, you're leaving your animals, your food, your shelter, um, the knowledge of your property. Um, you're leaving everything basically. Yeah. Um, again, I think there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now where it's like crazy uh, with everything happening. But even if we go back to World War I, World War II, there was no real bugging out unless you were in a situation where they were fighting in your neighborhood, in which case there was a lot of refugees moving around to different spots, getting out of Dodge. There was some sort of a bit of notice anyway in some cases, not all of them. So, but again, it to me is with all the stuff going on like this, it just makes me want to grow more stuff, want to raise more animals, want to get more prepared to have to deal with things that will happen that's out of our control. So, inflation, lack of supplies, everything that we were already seeing happening. Yeah, there's some nice frame packs out there. My one is basically it's a frame pack, but I can take the bag off it. So I can go with the bag, then dump the bag, and then say if I get a moose or deer or something, I can carry out a leg or something like that. Chances of that happening are slim to none because I'm not planning to do that, but it gives that option as well. Yeah, we usually have a few bags of the swimming pool salt because our pool is a saltwater one. So I'll have to look at that. Yeah, there's so many good packs out there. To recommend one over another is kind of hard depending on for me again it comes down to situation. So um I have one that is what is it? It starts with a I want to it's not Vertex, it's Verde. So it's kind of like an osprey, that kind of style. So it's a lightweight hiking climbing pack. I've got a couple high ground gear packs, so more the military style packs. Those ones I really like because I can dump the pack and keep the belt on. So it's basically a quick release. So if I want to go more tactical, I can keep my belt, dump the pack in cases where like, doing recce and that kind of stuff. Um, there's I forget how to pronounce it, and you said it there, Ubeller stock or Uber stock. Um, I've seen their packs firsthand. I don't have one. They make really good bomb-proof packs. My complaint with those would be is they're a little on the heavy side from what I've seen. So it's one of those again, depending on the features, depending on what someone's doing, it it would dictate the pack that they would need. Um, for me, again, what I want to throw on at different times dictates what I'm doing or what I want to carry with me. Yeah, that's just it. Yeah, I mean, I've done that with new boots, clothes, that sort of thing, where you know wear them around the house just to get used to it, break them in, make sure they work for you. Oh yeah, and that's just it too. If you have a dog, dogs will carry some of the gear themselves. I don't know if my basset hound will or not, but it'd be dragging on the ground beside them. But you know, if you have a horse as well, or donkey that might work for you, or that sort of thing, there's always options as well. So like the jogging strollers, animals, anything like that where it might be beneficial if you have to leave, then you can pack it up if you don't have a working vehicle or someone to pick you up or that sort of thing. I know, eh? Let's see if I can. Yeah. So that one there's from Mulberry Branch. And it is so comfortable. I really like this one. What the hell? My camera's like misbehaving on me. And that's just it. Is like bugging out in most of kind of northern Ontario, northern Quebec, the East Coast, in from I'd say November to March, sometimes into April, is going to be extremely difficult. You're going to have to deal with tons of snow. You're going to have to deal with river crossings. You're going to have to deal with forests that make movement very difficult. You're going to have to deal with a variety of temperature fluctuations where it could be -30 and get up to Celsius, -30 Celsius, and get up to even -5 during the day. Um, you're going to have to deal with the deep snow going through it, either walking or snowshoes or skis, that kind of thing. It it's a hard terrain to manage going through all of that. Oh, it's great to discuss everything. And, you know, the more we talk about different stuff, like I'm still learning tons of stuff. So the more we all can just chat and discuss stuff, then it makes it easier for us to look at our own situations, look at other people's situations, pick and choose what we need, and learn from it. Hey, Hoogie Homestead, glad you could join us. Yep, exactly. The more everyone can plant food, grow food, raise food, uh, find every corner of your property that you can. If you're in an apartment, like I said, get together with your neighbors. One of you grow some tomatoes on your balcony, get your neighbor to grow basil on the balcony, get the other to grow rosemary, another grow, you know, maybe like a container of potatoes or something. Do whatever you can with what you have to start growing and raising more food. Yeah, exactly. It makes a difference, and I learned that lesson last year. Is that, you know, if you're not going to eat it, or you don't eat it a lot, then there's not much sense in actually planting it or buying it or storing it. You're better off um, using your time, using your resources to put into stuff that you do use often. Yeah. Yeah, I know we've been talking about, like, government issues about, like, the avian flu and that kinda stuff where, again, government telling us what we can and can't do and that kinda stuff. It's, you know, but again, the more everyone can stock away and put away, the better we are. Am I falling behind? I probably am, aren't I? Yeah, lots of pew pew seeds. Uh, Pricing has gone up crazy. Um, if you don't have hunting ammo, um, or you need some, I highly recommend buying it now. If you see it in the store, buy it because it'll probably still be another year before there is a good supply of stuff. Other stuff like 9 mil 223 is not too bad, but it's the some of the weirder hunting calibers that are getting no, not going to happen. They're concentrating on other stuff. So yeah, ticks are bad at getting brutal. Yeah, that's one of the things too, is like, again, that's why so many of us that haven't had community, I highly recommend getting a community, getting friends and neighbors and that sort of stuff where you can all look out for each other. If something is going on in the street, or someone's prowling around the neighbors or coming through your property and heading to the neighbors or that sort of stuff, you can all kind of be aware and keep looking out for each other. Make sure you have a form of communication set up as well with them, some way to make sure you can get a hold of them, talk to everybody. It's always good. Um, if you're out by yourself in an area, then it's going to be a little harder to secure that. So it's one of those things that not sure what the answer would be there. Yeah, so, you know, want to stock away stuff that we eat. It's kind of the real deal right now. Not oh, let's try this. This would be nice. Yeah, I saw that as well. I don't know how well that actually works. We don't have enough ticks here that I haven't tried it, and I don't know any buddies down south that have tried it either yet. So, oh yeah, smash that thumbs up, spank it, give it a little smack there, and you know, show me that you care. Yeah, and that's one of those things that I don't know. What we've seen is movies kind of thing, right? So society breaks down and people come through and just destroy stuff and take what they need. And is that going to happen? I don't know. It's kind of only movies. What I can, I guess, what we can do is just kind of look at places that have gone into the pooper and try and see what those folks are doing. So my thought would be is, if we take a look at uh, again, I bring up Lebanon and Venezuela and that sort of stuff. How, are people gardening? Are people, you know, stealing stuff? What is the situation they're having to deal with for raising their own food or growing their own food? That kind of thing. Nice. I heard also guinea fowl are great for ticks, but I don't know if y'all will have guinea fowl, but I hear they're a little noisy, but they're really good for ticks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've got tons. We're throwing a bunch in the incubator too now. Uh, we realized one of the hens that we harvested last year was actually the one who was broody. So now we got to see if one of the younger hens that we have is actually going to be broody, so that we can let her stay on the nest instead of using the incubator all the time. So we'll see what happens there. Yeah, and that's the other thing that we always have to remember is, when we're talking about doomsday events or everything going for a crap, is that then kind of the laws are off the table. So it's like, if this is what's happening, there's no police, there's no society, there's no whatchamacallit, rule of law sort of thing, then there's going to be a few other options open to people to how they protect their place or that sort of thing. So again, that's all up in the air, and that's all saying if things go to like a doomsday event, which again, in my mind, there's going to be, if it's man-made, there's going to be a lot of steps to get there. Say there's a nuclear war or something like that. How many of us are going to be left, or are we going to be able to survive the time after that as well? So that's funny. Yeah, and that's the other thing too. I mean, the government, if the government continues to bring down some stuff where it's like, okay, so we're going to start regulating all your backyard chickens and you're going to have to live up to these standards. I mean, I heard people talking about the possibility of, having foot baths outside their chicken coops. So you to, you know, prevent biohazard and transmission and all that sort of stuff where you have to take your rubber boots, stick them in the water soapy bath, rinse them all off, clean them all off, and then you can go into your chicken coop. Really? So it's it's one of those where if that's the kind of stuff that they start pushing, then again, only the big guys will be able to afford it, will have the time to do it, will go through, jump the hoops to go through that sort of thing. So yeah, exactly. That's just it. It's like, if it is the doomsday event, then, you know, the roads aren't going to be safe to travel. You're going to have to go out into the bush. So it's yep. Yeah, I'm actually scrolling through now trying to catch up. I just noticed I'm like, "Oh, some of those were from a few minutes ago." So I better actually catch up and uh yeah, we've done both. We've tried to do both heirloom and the regular like store bought stuff, and as well as grocery store bought stuff, and you know plant everything and continue to harvest what takes, what doesn't take, and or we don't actually harvest what doesn't take, but we see what doesn't take, and then we're able to harvest the ones that take and grow. So skipping through a few comments here, gonna catch up, make it easier for you guys to interact with me. Squash. Oh, I'm that far behind. Okay, I'm down to the bottom. Yeah, it'll be bit by bit that they continue, and it's been that way forever, you know? They bring in little bits at a time, increase the regulations, increase the what we have to deal with, and again, it's like, you know, the more money you have, the more time you have, the more you can jump through the hoops and the regulations, but for the little guys, it becomes more of a headache and more expensive. Yep, I do see it. I'm at the bottom. You can begin talking again and posting again. I know it. If I think it's kind of natural, you know, the more you watch Hickory Croft, where they planted this year. Hmm. Yeah. So here's the thing. Now it's like about my bedtime. So I think I'm going to have to close this down. But yeah, catch up and then I'm going to take off. Nice, nice guy, eh? Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. Great conversation. I learned some stuff too, thought about some new stuff. Might have to do some new stuff and switch some stuff. But yeah, I learned a few things tonight that, thank you guys for mentioning stuff and pointing out what you guys do as well. It's always great to hear. So, uh, thanks again so much. I really appreciate you guys being here. And everyone have a good night. Take care, eh? Love you guys.